So we are coming off an extremely massive blowout on Thursday Night Football. And typically what I always do every single week, not typically, I do this every single week, is on Mondays, I make sure that we do our trade targets video, who are buy low guys, before the next week begins. And of course we're going to continue to do that, but the second best time to make trades in fantasy football is during the weekend leading up to the actual slate of Sunday games. Because essentially what you do during this time is you let some things die down, let some people cool off, get some level heads here, and actually make some good business decisions. So today we need to go over 5 big brain trades that you need to make before week 3 fantasy football. Finally back in the regular studio, and I will be up again once again all night making sure that this video gets out to you on time. So please make sure to go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support for the channel. It's always greatly appreciated. But let's go ahead and dive into our first trade right here. And honestly, this one I thought about a lot, specifically during this week. And I realized that I really love this trade idea. It's Najee Harris for Tyler Algier. And let me explain why I love this. There's a lot of reasons why I love it. So first of all, let's discuss why you trade for Tyler Algier first. So the reason that I love trading for Tyler Algier, specifically for Najee Harris, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to buy Tyler Algier just in general. I think this is a great trade right here because let's look at Tyler Algier's reality right now. He's obviously the clear RB2 in this offense. I mean, they've got a superstar in the making at running back with Bijan Robinson. And Tyler Algier is a good player, but he's clearly their second best running back on this team. Let's look even closer though. So when we talk about week 1 from week 2, in the Atlanta Falcons running back room, let's look at how the carries and touches broke down. So Bijan Robinson had 10 total carries in week 1. And of course he had targets on top of that, and he actually had a receiving touchdown, had a great fantasy week, and so did Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson went from 10 carries in week 1 to 19 carries in week 2. So his numbers obviously increased, and he basically doubled his total carry total in week 2. So naturally what you would think is that the running back 2, in this case Tyler Algier, his carries probably went down in week 2. Well, actually the exact opposite happened. Tyler Algier had 15 carries in week 1, and he had 16 carries in week 2. This is an important piece of information right here, because over the offseason, and really for the past several weeks as well, I really have compared this situation in Atlanta between Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson to 2022 in New York with Breece Hall and Michael Carter. I compare those two a lot because obviously Breece Hall is a very talented running back, and they had Michael Carter, who was looking good after his rookie season, but Breece Hall was just a better player at the end of the day. It's the same thing here with the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan Robinson is a superstar. He's a top 10 pick. Breece Hall wasn't even top 10. And I think that Tyler Algier is good, but he's not Bijan Robinson. But here's where this one is actually different though. The difference here between that situation is Tyler Algier is actually just a better player than Michael Carter is. That's just the reality here. So he's making it very tough for Atlanta to bench him right now because of how well he's playing. And now let's shift to Najee Harris, who obviously Najee has been bad. I mean, not just bad, he's been really bad. Like it's disgusting what he's done. I mean, this offense in Pittsburgh is absolutely putrid. It's disgustingly bad. But the reality with Najee Harris is he does have selling points. He really does. So obviously he's the running back 1 in an offense. And I know a lot of people are excited about Jaylen Warren. As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I like Jaylen Warren, but my fantasy football analysis comes first. And Najee Harris every single week leads this backfield. And he's got the big name. He's got the big name, Pittsburgh Steelers running back, first round draft pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Here's the reason why you make this trade right here. The way I look at this situation is I would rather have a running back 2 on a way better running offense than a running back 1 on a horrific running offense right here. Because let's look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offensive line hasn't gotten any better, and the bad run game is a result of that. And they just abandoned the run game. The last 2 weeks, they've abandoned the run game entirely. Najee has less than 20 carries in 2 weeks. They've abandoned the run game entirely. They are number 31 in the NFL in rushing attempts. On the other hand, Atlanta's got a top 5 to 10 offensive line, and they're the number 4 team in rushing attempts this year so far. And last year, they were the number 1 team in rushing attempts. This offense is built around the run. They are built to run. Like I said, Algiers been very good, and you should expect more involvement in this one, because with Naji's name, you could possibly get more in this type of trade and maybe get like a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 in the trade as well. Moving down to our next trade right here. I also love this trade as well. It's Justin Fields for Anthony Richardson and possibly even more. So let me tell you why I love this one so much. So obviously when you're thinking about Justin Fields, he's been so bad in fantasy football this year, and when I say he's been bad, like I don't mean that like from a fantasy football perspective, like he just had like 10-point games or like 2-point games. It's not been that bad. Like he still has a solid floor because of the rushing upside he presents. And if you trade Justin Fields, or if you're trying to trade him, it probably feels like you won't get much for him in return. And also with this particular trade right here, it actually might feel like you're settling a little bit. And I'll say this, Justin Fields is not someone I'm actively selling. Like I'm not just sending out offers just for the heck of it in exchange for Justin Fields because I want to get him off my team so bad. It's not like that in this situation. I was super big on him before the season started. Those of you who have been with my channel since the offseason, you know how much I loved Justin Fields coming into the season. And I honestly think that he could have a similar season to last season, where he starts out really slow and then he catches fire and has a really strong finish to the season. So I'm totally cool with holding on to Justin Fields. Now, by that time that he explodes, it may be too late for Chicago's playoff chances, but this is fantasy football, and it won't be too late for your team. And Justin Fields hasn't just been bad. That's the important piece to this. The Chicago Bears, as a team, they're falling apart right now. I mean, you've got things ranging from Chase Claypool drama to Justin Fields calling out the coaching staff to the defensive coordinator resigning from the team this week after some bizarre situation happened. I mean, Justin Fields is simply actually just set up for failure right now. I mean, that's the reality of the situation for Justin Fields. Now, I'm not going out there, like I said, and trading Justin Fields for a guy like Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. That's not what I'm doing. We're going for upside here when we make this trade. We need to get the upside in return. That's why I'm buying Anthony Richardson. He has looked absolutely fantastic through 2 weeks right here. He had a great week 1 performance in fantasy football, and in week 2, in less than half a game, he had over 17 fantasy points against the Houston Texans. And he's also likely going to miss week 3 as well. So that means that a lot of people are not going to be thinking about Anthony Richardson right now. And he also hasn't done what Justin Fields has done in fantasy football. He doesn't have the pedigree and the resume that Justin Fields established for himself last year. So this situation to me is actually a very good trade opportunity because Anthony Richardson's situation is way better. He's got a way more stable team around him right now. And Shane Steichen, the head coach, is the real deal. He had a massive hand in developing Jalen Hurts as a thrower in 2022, and the Eagles were sad to see him leave. Anthony Richardson is benefiting from that. He's also got a better offense, a better offensive line, and he's just as dynamic of a player here. I've actually made this trade a couple of times this week in a couple of different redraft leagues. I think you should do the same, and you could honestly possibly get more for him in return. Moving on to our next trade here, we've got Brian Robinson for Travis Etienne right here. Now, this one honestly shouldn't surprise you on a couple different levels. The reason it shouldn't surprise you is because if you've been following my channel, I'm not big on Brian Robinson. I've just never been a Brian Robinson type of guy. He's not efficient. He's not on a good offense. The offensive line is not good. It's just not good all around for Brian Robinson. And on the other hand, I love Travis Etienne. Love Travis Etienne so much. And this one, honestly, is probably going to take some finagling here. Like, you're probably going to have to use some selling points. And you can't just, like, send this offer without saying anything. You're probably not going to make it work. But there's merit to this one, so let's go through it. So Brian Robinson is the running back 3 right now on the year through 2 weeks off of that crazy week 2. And by the way, week 1, he wasn't that great in fantasy. The real reason that he's at the RB3 is because of week 2. And honestly, it shocked me how good he was. I really didn't think he had that high of a ceiling. And I also thought that Denver's defense was just better than they are. And newsflash, I was wrong about that. Their defense is not good. When you look at Brian Robinson and Travis Etienne both together on the screen right now, you'll see that they both average 3.9 yards per carry. And Brian Robinson also has more carries, which it's important to note here because the less carries you have, the way easier it is to get a much higher yards per carry. But this is really simple to me, and it just comes down to a couple different things. Travis Etienne's offense in Jacksonville is just so much better than Brian Robinson's in Washington here. He's also got the better offensive line. There's no question about that. Washington's offensive line is not good. Jacksonville's is not great, but it's definitely much better than the Washington Commanders. And Tank Bigsby, the guy that everyone was so hyped about during the offseason, he had 0 touches in week 2. So he's not going to be much of a factor that's going to be affecting Travis Etienne at all. I'm simply just not worried about Travis Etienne this week. This one, like I said, not a guarantee you're going to get this one straight up. It's going to take some finagling here. But Etienne had a good week 1. And it's important to remember that because also keep in mind that a lot of people have very short memories in fantasy football. That's just the reality. Someone who was good in week 1, the next week if they're not, they're already ready to get off of them. And plus, Travis Etienne's going to have a great week 3 performance. Book that one down. So our next trade right here is going to be Keenan Allen for Chris Olave. So let me tell you this one right off the bat. I love Keenan Allen. I have actually thought that Keenan Allen has been an underrated player ever since he came into the league. I've always thought he's just been a forgotten guy, and he's honestly very similar to Tyler Lockett. They're both in their 30s now, and they both are always good in fantasy football, but that neither of them get the respect that they deserve, and including from me all the time. But there's really 2 reasons for this one, and they're honestly both pretty simple reasons. The first reason is, obviously, like I discussed, Keenan Allen is in his 30s. Chris Olave is 23 and Keenan Allen is 31. Now, the reason I bring that up is because obviously Keenan Allen, he's got a pretty lengthy injury history that is not very friendly for fantasy football. Keenan Allen is the type of guy who's getting older, his body's wearing down on him, and he's just not always reliable to go on a week-to-week basis, especially when it gets down to the later part of the season. So what we're seeing right now is that Chris Olave, he's just much younger, his body's not as beaten up. I think that he's going to provide you later upside better than Keenan Allen will. And when you look at their numbers on the screen, they're both stacked up on the screen right now. You'll see that they basically have almost the same exact numbers. Both of them 14 catches. Olave's got 21 targets. Keenan's got 19. And they both have within 11 yards of each other through weeks 1 and 2. So the big difference here, and the reason that they're ranked so differently right now, is because Keenan Allen has 2 touchdowns this year. Chris Olave has none. Let me tell you this right now. This is going to come. The touchdowns are going to come for Chris Olave. Derek Carr throws a very nice deep ball. Among the many things that Derek Carr doesn't do well, one of them is not his deep ball accuracy. Derek Carr is a good deep ball thrower, and Olave is also the number 1 target. And last year, when you look at Chris Olave specifically from a deep target perspective, he was number 4 in deep targets last year with 29 deep targets. This season, through 2 weeks, keep it in mind it's only been 2 weeks, but he's number 2 in the NFL on deep targets with 6. So he's on pace to outdo that number in 2023. They're going to hit on the touchdowns, and I just think that his upside longer term is going to be higher than Keenan Allen's. Now, our last trade on the list right now is Jordan Addison for Jalen Waddle here. This one is interesting to me because even just thinking back to where they were both drafted in drafts this year, Jalen Waddle was like a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, and Jordan Addison wasn't going until like round 7 through 10. And both of these are obviously depending on your format of scoring and obviously the platform that you drafted them on. So Jordan Addison has been a tremendous value so far, and I really like the player. Like dating back to the offseason before he even got drafted, I created a 2023 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, and I highlight wide receivers specifically with a wide receiver prospect model. And Jordan Addison tested very well on my prospect model, which, by the way, is very indicative of how fantasy players are going to perform in the future. And a lot of people jump ship off Addison because of his size after the combine. And I held my ground as him as my wide receiver 2 in the class above Quentin Johnston. But that's aside the point here. I just wanted to prove to you that I really, really like Jordan Addison. And I think what he's doing right now is very valid because this guy's a pro-ready rookie right here. But honestly, I view this as the perfect time to cash out. And the reason I say that is because he's the wide receiver 13 right now. And when we're stacking him and Waddle up together, on the screen you can see it right now. Again, it's very similar to the Chris Olave and Keenan Allen thing we just discussed. Their numbers are basically identical. I mean, they're exact same. Waddle's actually got 30 more yards than Jordan Addison does, but Jordan Addison has a much higher wide receiver rank in fantasy football through 2 weeks. Why? Because he's got 2 touchdowns and Waddle has 0. This is going to change. It will change. I mean, let's be honest here. Miami's offense is so much better than Minnesota's offense. And it's not that Minnesota's offense is bad, but Miami possibly has the best offense in the entire league. I just think that Waddle's best days are literally just like weeks away, if not this week. And I'm not saying that I think Jordan Addison is going to be bad for the rest of fantasy football in 2023. I just think that Waddle, when he's on, is just a better player than Jordan Addison. And remember, with all of these trades, the worst anyone can say to you is no. So let me know who you are actively targeting and selling away before week 3 fantasy football. And let me know what matchup questions you need answered in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer every single one of you. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receiver rankings for week 3 fantasy football, click on this video right here.